Welcome to the Transform Your Wedding podcast, a how-to guide for taking your wedding to a whole new level. Here's your host, Marci Guttenberg from Rent My Wedding.
Hey everyone, today we're talking all about printed wedding details. We'll cover the 10 types of printed items that you need for your big day, along with some tips on how to make it fit with your overall decor. I'll be chatting with Marci Guttenberg, the owner of An Affair to Remember by Marci. She's an award-winning wedding planner with more than 30 years of experience in the industry. So I can't wait to hear all of Marci's tips and advice. Hey, Marci. Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, Marie. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. How are you doing?
Great. It's a great day today.
Absolutely. And I'm really excited today to be talking all about printed details. I know this is your area of expertise, so you've got a lot of great things to share with us.
Yes, I'm very excited to share some information today.
Yeah, so we're going to start off by getting really basic for those who are just starting out with their wedding planning. We're going to talk about the 10 different types of printed items that you need for your big day. I'll kind of go through each one by one. I'll kind of bring up each item. Marci, if you could tell everyone just a little bit about what it is and why we need it for the wedding.
Okay.
So number one, we'll start off with the ceremony, and the first thing you need would be programs.
Yes, you would definitely need programs. It's a great opportunity to introduce your bridal party. Maybe if you have any special psalms that you're going to be saying, any special messages to the attendees of your guests that are there, and it shows off a little bit of your personality too.
Definitely. Okay, now the second item we have is reserved seating cards, and this one is probably optional, but tell everyone a little bit about this item.
Okay, so there are reserved seating cards, and there's a difference between, and I think you may have it down the line at some point, but there's a little bit of a difference between a seating card and a place card. And the difference being that a place card would be something that you would have at your table setting, and maybe it would have your name. And if you're having a fillet, or if you're having a fish or something, it's going to indicate that to the server so they know where to place the dish when it comes out from the kitchen. The seating card is a card that instructs your guests to the table that they're sitting at. So that could be out in the hallway or in the reception area, but it's going to help them find their way and navigate the room to find where they're going to be sitting.
Perfect. And I think one other way we might use them too, I know for ceremonies, we have some couples that will even use them for seating in the ceremony itself. If you want the first pew, let's say in the church, maybe it's reserved.
Yes, they used to call them pew cards.
Oh, there we go.
Yes.
Yep. So thinking about the seating, both at the ceremony as well as the reception, you want to make sure that you have the printed items you need to either direct people where to go or mark off seats that are reserved for family.
Exactly. And there's another way to do it as well, and that would be like either a seating chart or a marquee that would have, maybe it's made out of glass or a mirror or something. Those are also some ways to let your guests know what table they're sitting at.
Definitely, yeah. And that's actually our next one on the list, is coming up with that seating chart.
Yes, I would recommend doing that alphabetically, because I've seen it done both ways, where, I've been a guest at an event where, let's say it was not in an alphabetical order, and I was having to go through each of the tables to find my name. So I think finding it alphabetically is going to be the easiest way for your guests to be able to find how to, where they're going to be sitting.
Yeah, that is definitely such a great tip. So make it alphabetical and make it visible too. I know sometimes you get to the wedding and you don't even notice that there's a seating chart. So you're doing the same thing, just walking around tables, trying to find your name. And lo and behold, in the corner somewhere, there's a tiny little seating chart where you could have figured it out. So just make sure that everyone sees and knows that you have that seating chart, and you're going to save a lot of frustration from your guests.
Exactly. You can also give a copy to the maitre d' or the banquet server or banquet captain, so that if they're stopped by somebody, they might be able to help them out just on a side.
Definitely. Yeah. Great idea. And of course, we've got the seating chart, we've got the place cards. We also need table numbers.
Yes, table numbers. A great way to incorporate the table numbers is really kind of, match them or make them complementary to the seating table numbers, to the seating cards. So this way, when your guests come in, it also adds a little bit of element to the table in addition to your floral or your candles or whatever other arrangements are on the table. But it just adds to that whole overall look.
Yeah. Now, quick question about those table numbers. I know some couples like to do something a little different. So instead of table 1, table 2, they want to name it after countries that they visited, or maybe, something personal about themselves.
Exactly.
What do you think about getting creative and how to pull that off when it comes to table numbers?
Exactly. I mean, these days it's all about personalizing the wedding. No two weddings are going to be the same. So you really want to capitalize on showing off your personalities. If you're a golfer, you want to incorporate something about golf on the tables. That's fine as well, because everybody knows people who do know you are going to know, like if you're a golfer, they're going to know you guys, the two of you go golfing. So they could say, oh, par 3, par 5, ninth tee, so whatever's going to capture in on the personality of the couple is the great way to incorporate it.
Definitely. Yeah, I love that. So moving on with our, we've got our place cards, we've now found our table with the table number. The next printed item you're probably going to see is the menu.
Yes. And let me tell you, I cannot tell you enough that really sets the tone for your table. I mean, when your guests walk in and they look at the visuals of your table and they're not just looking at the centerpiece, and they're looking at everything, that's when you're saying, wow, because that's what really, otherwise you have, either a bare plate or you're going to have an empty area where there's no plate. So you really want to have something that's really going to set the tone for the overall look.
Definitely. And kind of tying into that too, I know there's a lot of couples that will have favors there on the table, but they'll actually put a little printed favor tag on it that might have either their wedding date or their names. What have you seen for favors and printed items there?
For favors, right now, I think a lot of people are getting very personal with their guests. They're having smaller and more intimate weddings because of COVID, so I think that the bar has been raised a little bit more. As far as what you would see on a normal, typical basis, it really is up to the couple if you want to incorporate something that they really like, or if you want to go more of a traditional feel of maybe some mints or some Jordan almonds or something of that nature, but dress it up. I mean, whatever you're going to use, dress it up, make it look part of the overall look. You don't want to just throw something on the table and it doesn't really go. I mean, it's better to do something that's going to match than to put something out that doesn't really reflect your personality.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that's a great point. Now, the next printed material you'll probably see, moving away from the tables, we go over to the bar. It's great if you can have some signage or a bar menu there with your cocktails and beverage options.
Bar napkins, bar stirrers, all of those kinds of things can be personalized. They can be printed up. They can have your names on them. There's so many different options, and signage obviously is a great idea. A lot of people would like to put maybe their like the beverage, if they're having like a signature beverage or 2 signature beverages, they'll put those on there as well.
Definitely, yeah. So I think having all of that signed out and menus at the bar is awesome. And the other thing too is general signage. So, starting at the ceremony, we might have signage there. At the reception, you might have signage. Talk a little bit about kind of the bigger signage that you might have at the event.
Well, signage that you would see typically would be like if somebody wants to have a table with like their guest book, or bridal party would be directed into a specific area, or your ushers would be in another area. It's really a matter of everybody's wedding is going to be unique to themselves. So I think it's really important to make sure that you're telling people where to go, where to sit, what your expectation is. I've seen it even as much as people will actually have the schedule of events on a marquee somewhere. So, I mean, it depends on the couple though, not everybody is for the, showing everybody the schedule, but some people really want to be able to share all that and what other components there are. Like if you have, let's say it's an outdoor event or a partial outdoor event and you have some lawn games or something, and you want to let people know where to go for the lawn games. That's also an idea as to what to expect, or if if they're and there's let's say there's some beverages upon their arrival. It tells your guests what is available, like if it's whether it's an alcoholic drink or if it's a lemonade or an iced tea or something, or just water, just so that people know what they're picking up and drinking.
Yeah, I think that's a great point too, because people have allergies or different diets, things like that. So you want to make sure that you actually label everything and make it clear what things are, so that you don't run into a situation with a guest having something that they can't have. So that's a really good tip when it comes to those printed details. Now, another thing I like to talk about is, signage and printed details are really functional. They're conveying all the information you need, but they're also part of the overall wedding decor, because, you've got this sprinkled throughout the reception venue. So I think it's important to really think about it and be mindful about what you're doing, so it doesn't, take away from the gorgeous look of your reception. So tell us your tips about, making all of the printed details really part of the decor.
I would definitely make it cohesive, make it stylistic to the personality of the overall event, your personalities included in there, choosing the colors wisely, maybe even the font selection that you're using. Those are all details that you're going to want to incorporate. They don't necessarily have to match your invitation, but they should definitely match with one another at the actual event, because once you're on site and your guests see everything, you want it to have a cohesive look.
Definitely. And when it comes to sourcing your printed materials, what are some tips that you have for how to find the best vendor to work with for that?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that one?
Oh, so when it comes to finding the best vendor for your printed materials, what tips do you have on finding the right vendor to work with?
Okay, so the first thing I would say is, when I meet with a couple, I ask them a lot of, some questions, because I want to get to know them and know their style. I want to know what their personality is like. I want to know if they've got any colors, or if they want to incorporate something from the wedding itself. Maybe there's a certain flower or a certain element that they want to incorporate. All of those things go into those aspects. Another factor would be the budget, because there are different price tiers for different vendors that I work with. Another one would be if there's a paper quality that they're looking for, or a style of paper or printing method. Those are all factors that are going to be included in the mix of choosing the right vendor for the couple that I'm working with.
Okay, definitely. And a lot of couples love to do a custom monogram that they use, on their invitations and maybe on some of the other details. How do you even go about creating that monogram, and what are some tips that you have on that?
Okay, so there's a lot of resources that you can look at online. There's probably about, that I know of offhand, about 30 to 40 different ways to do a monogram. And it really is a matter of, are you doing one for a single person? Are you doing it as a couple? Is it a same sex, or is it a heterosexual? Is it, do you want to have all the letters the same size, or do you want to do one letter that would be more predominant than the other two letters? So there's so many different ways that you can do that. But there are some great resources online, and somebody can always contact me, and I'm happy to help them out on that.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, and the thing that I love too is the monogram. Once you design it, you can use it in so many different ways. And I think that's another thing that's going to really turn your printed materials into decor pieces that you can showcase. And
Yes.
at Rent My Wedding, we even turn those monograms into lighting effects. So we'll have, those monograms are on the napkins, and you see it on the wall in lights, which I think is such a cool way to kind of turn, again, that printed item into your overall decor, and it's all blending together in a cohesive look.
Right. You could do it as a gobo, which would reflect on the wall, or you can use it on your as a dance floor wrap. Those are always great. You can use it as for your aisle runner, and that way you would have it as a monogram on your aisle runner, on your napkin, on your program, on your, I'm just trying to think, menu. There's so many ways that you can incorporate a monogram. And don't forget that, in addition to the ceremony and the reception and maybe the dinner, you also have the restrooms. So you want to take care of your guests. So you may want to order a little extra on the napkins, so that, maybe you order some, it's not beverage napkins, but they're guest towel napkins. Those are also a great place that you can use the monogram. And if you don't use a date on it, you can use it in your home afterwards.
Ooh, I love that too. That's awesome. Well, any other tips that you have for everyone when it comes to printed details?
Yes. So there are so many different areas that you can look at when you're looking at the papers, the quality of the papers. There's beveling, which is a side, little edges slanted on the side, so that it has a little bit of a board, like an edging. I've seen it where you can do it non-painted, and some of them you can even paint. So it can also, like I did one very recent that had it was a rose gold foil on the top, and then the edge we did the rose gold. So that way it pulls everything together. And then we had a liner as well. So, you just want to make sure that when you're doing the invitation, it's literally the very first thing that your guests see when they're putting together the details for their wedding. It's the very first tangible item that your friends and family and your guests are going to see, and it's going to set the stage for the event. So that's a very key item, is your invitation, because it's literally the very first taste of your wedding.
Yeah, that is so true.
And there's different parts that you can incorporate, whether it's an informal or a formal invitation. If you want to do it more personalized, trendy, classic. If you want to do it luxe or traditional, those are options that you want to think about, like, what is your feel, what are you gravitating towards, what speaks to you. So those are things that I would really encourage people to consider when they're putting together those ideas of what can I do for my wedding invitation. You can be very simple, you can be very ornate, but choose something indicative to your style. You don't want to have a very formal, over the top wedding invitation with bling, 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 and you're doing it, maybe at somebody's backyard. Not to say that wouldn't be the right fit, but you would have to make sure that its style matches. So it really is a pulling things together to reflect the tone of what your guests are expecting when they show up. Because if they show up to a wedding, and let's say it's an outdoor wedding and they're in an evening gown,
right,
they're at the wrong place.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that you're conveying the look or the feel to your guests. You can incorporate so many different areas too. For example, we talked about golf before. I've seen where people will want to choose to bring in, I've had couples that have been very Disney-esque oriented, and they want to incorporate Disney style items. Or if it's an older couple and or a second marriage, those are also areas that you want to consider when you're pulling in ideas. And then as far as papers, we talked a little bit about the bevel before, but there are so many more items. There's a pearlized look, which is like a shimmer paper, or it can also be a pearlized look, which could be part of a border. So for example, if let's say you have what they call ecru or ivory, some people call it ivory, some people call it ecru. You would have maybe like a border around the edge, and part of it would be what's called pearlized, and it just gives like that shimmer effect, or like it's like a flat texture of shininess, so to speak.
Okay.
So that's something to think about. If you wanted to do a flat invitation or a folded invitation, most people will do flat invitations these days, but there are occasions that some people want to have a more traditional style invitation. There's opportunities for so many areas for personalization when it comes to using different fonts, different colors. Some people will go towards black, or like a slate gray, which is almost black but not quite. But that gives an opportunity to, whether you want to do something very traditional, or if you want to do something more to your personality and bring in some color. The trends coming up actually actually now they're very big into the watercolors. So those are going to be hot coming up, especially down here in Florida. Those will definitely stand out. And you can do layers. I'm just trying to think of like some of the ideas but your typesetting, when you're looking at invitations, one thing I can recommend people to do is don't get caught up on what is printed on the invitation or the ink color that's being used on the invitation. In most cases, the ink color can be changed and the font style can be changed. So pull in what you like, not necessarily what's on the invitation. But when you're looking at the invitation itself, look at the style of the invitation and the paper quality.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's such a great tip too. And I can't believe there's so much that goes into these printed details and invitations. I feel like I just learned a lot, and I've already had a wedding and I didn't know half of this.
There's a lot of information out there. I wish I knew that when I got married. I was working in catering at the time.
But I really love your point too about making sure the invitation matches the style of the wedding, because that's so true. I think a lot of couples, they get engaged, they pick a date, they send out the invitation, and they haven't even thought about the actual wedding yet at all. So I think it's smart to take a second, actually think about the style you want to use for your wedding, and then have that invitation match accordingly, because like you said, you don't want someone showing up in heels and it's a backyard wedding and now they can't even walk around the grass yard. So
right. And when you get engaged, I mean, honestly, the first thing I tell people is breathe, because even though it may appear that it's off in a distance, those months of planning go by very quick. But count on your people to help you and assist you in guiding, giving you the guidance, because that's what we're here for. I mean, whether you're renting, whether you're owning, whether you're, whatever the aspect is, you really want to make sure that you're pulling all the details in together and it's being cohesive, because you want your guests to walk away going, wow, and oh my gosh, I can't remember, I can't believe your wedding was 15 years ago. I still remember it like it was yesterday. I mean, that's like the biggest compliment that somebody could give you. So I think those are things that you really want to make sure that everything is looking at top notch.
Definitely. Well, those are great tips. And Marci, why don't you tell us more about yourself and your company?
Okay, so I have been in business. My company name is An Affair to Remember by Marci, and I can be found on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Pinterest. I think I got them all. And so my company, had my company now for 14 years, and I've been in the event industry for over 30 years. I started out in reservations and did a short time in there, moved my way up to catering. I was asked actually to come up to catering because I was the coordinator for reservations for very, very large groups for, at that time, it was 891 sleeping rooms. And then when I went up to catering, I did catering for a while, where when I say catering, I'm talking about catering sales. So we would work with the clients to figure out what they would want for their events, do all the planning in advance. And then I started my business 14 years ago. It's been great. I love what I do. I love working with people. I mean, honestly, it's really the best thing I can say is it's really about allowing your guests or your clients to really capture in on something that is so important to them, and to be a part of somebody's special day it's all that you would live for. I mean, it's just like, it is such a great feeling. I love working with clients. And, I mean, I have my own website out there. I should have given that to you. It's www.rsv as in Victor, P, S as in Sam, the number 4, and the letter U.com. So when you read it, it rolls off the tongue, rsvps4u.com. And the reason I did that is I just needed a shorter name. I didn't realize when I registered my company name that it was so long. But I've been in business for 14 years. I just felt I couldn't change it at that point. So I have my own website and I do a blog. I'm also on another podcast, weekly podcast called Behind the Veil. And that is with Keith Willard. And so, it's been a great fit for me. I get to really do what I love and work one-on-one with people, which is ultimately to me, what I enjoy the most. I like building relationships and getting to know the couple and then giving them something special that they can have for the rest of their life. Because even though, a distant relative or friend may not keep the invitation, you're going to keep that invitation and you're going to see that every day in your home.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Well, perfect. Well, Marci, thank you so much for sharing all of these great tips.
Thank you, Marie.
So much fun chatting with you, and thanks for being on the show. Well, I hope you enjoyed all of those tips about printed wedding details. And don't forget, you can catch all of our podcast episodes over at transformyourwedding.com. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next time.
This podcast is brought to you by Rent My Wedding, your one-stop shop for event rentals. Order online and rentals are delivered right to your door. Shipping is free both ways nationwide. Rent lighting, backdrops, photo booths, and more. With the most 5-star reviews in the industry, Rent My Wedding makes rentals easy and affordable. Book your rentals today at www.rentmywedding.com.